Hi guys, the old man's back at last. Pretty quick intro. Some of you might skip through some of it, but if you want to go to the end, I'll add something there in more detail. There are numerous factors I wanted to chat about, so I'll make it fairly short for the intro. All I've been making is using a large chunk of aluminum. I've made a V-block which is in two pieces. It bolts together to use as one large block and then undo it and you can have two. And I made it entirely for welding. It's not a high tolerance piece at all. The aluminum is useful as a heat sink, of course, sometimes. And believe it or not, I started stage one of this, just preparing the block, I think was back in late October, early November. And nothing's happened until the last day or two. So anyway, hopefully the continuity won't be too bad. So I'll run through the basic process of making this. And then, as I say, if you've got the time and are still with it, stay till the end and I'll fill you in on a few details. All right, here we go. Well, this is a 2.5 by 2 block of 6061, 4 inches long. Main thing initially is just to clean it up. This does not have to be vitally parallel, but we're going to get it cleaner anyway. That's quite a nice finish. So that's one side. I won't bore you with the other sides, you know what's going to happen. I'll say this is just to clean the whole piece up. The planning on this here is, we've got this finished now. All sides, a bit of deburring to do, but it's cleaned up pretty nice. I want to have a nice long V-block, but the thing I do want to do, and I may not do it straight away, I'm making use of a less cold day before we go back to frozen nuts. I don't know when I'll finish this. But what I was thinking of was, when I've made the V, is to cut it in half, but before that drill 2 holes down through. I was going to do some pinning, but I think I might just use some long hex bolts. Go down about 2.5 inch. So this is 4. So we go down 2 inches plus at least a half. Counterbore here. So we've got bolts to go right the way through, which means then once the V is cut, we cut this in half and face it, and then we've got either bolted together one complete large V-block, or if required unbolt and have 2 smaller ones. Well, I've got a very deep couple of holes to drill here, and the limitation of this little machine, I'm not going to be able to get high enough up, and I'm going to have to do some trickery. What I want to do, you can't see it, but there's a 3-inch mark down here, and I've got to go in 3 inches to allow me for tapping when we cut it in half. It'll all become clear as mud later. So I've got to get first of all a tapping hole right the way through, and then open up to clearance for halfway. That's basically it. I'm starting off with a stub drill just to make things a little bit easier, and then I've got to switch to a longer, and the flutes aren't long enough for 3-inch, so it's going to be very tedious if I can even manage. Well, a massive cheat here. The only way I could do it. That's using the full length of the drill, and after a small cut I have to keep bringing it up to clear the flutes. But that does get me a 3-inch, so I've got to do the other side now. Well, there's the whole drill, and the flutes stop there. So all that I've had to do in very small increments, winding the column up and down. I've only got 2 inches on the quill, which is very frustrating. So now I've got to put in clearance. Alright, I'm cheating here. End mill in a chuck. I'm too lazy to do any different. I've just put one counterbore in there. I'll just do this other one. That should do. It's the same as the first one. Alright, that'll work. Okay, the next thing, I'm going to cut this in half, and this is the reason for drilling so deep, because I want the tapping hole to be exactly aligned here with the clearance. I cut that in half, fly cut the surfaces to get them true, and then hopefully bolt them up and have a pretty true match. So we'll see what happens. Alright, well, I've tapped the female holes in here and put this back together. I haven't cleaned up the saw face yet, but there's a lot of reflection here. It seems to mate up pretty well, so I'll get the saw faces cleaned up and then see how it goes from there. I mean, the saw cut is not absolutely square and it's not totally clean. And what I did on these holes, I kept them at a quarter as against a clearance hole, because I wanted these bolts to actually be almost, I've run a reamer through, but I've actually let these bolts have very little slack. This is why I drilled everything all at once. Alright, so that's what we got, if it's even visible. You can see the saw marks, I expect. So we'll run a fly cutter over those faces and see where we go from there. Ultimately, of course, if I hadn't mentioned it, which I probably did in the initial video from way back, we want to make a cut of V. So this cutting tool in the fly cutter is a bit long. I remember I lashed it up once and I haven't changed it. It's been ground at the business end. You won't see, but there's one corner here after a roughing cut. There's one corner which hasn't quite faced, So I'm taking another tooth out and see if that's going to be enough. Yeah, that was the corner that had a little bit missing. So that should be alright. It's got to be deburred. Initially I had to take off about 8 or 9 thou because of the outer square saw cut, which was predictable. So I must do the other half and then see where we go from there. Well, we've got come together pretty well. Stayed pretty true. Very slight discrepancy. So I think what I might do, now they're bolted up, is and of course it looks as though there's a gap on here, but that's because I've got a tiny chamfer from deburring. So I think I'll run this piece through as a unit with a fly cutter, just to get better truth on the sides, and then set up and cut a V, one side or both, I'm not sure yet. Right, that's cleaned up the 4 sides. The ends I'm not worrying about. They were machined originally, so that's with all the reflection, I don't know, you can probably see the line. It's just evident. And a couple of centre pops there for registration. So the next thing is to try and set it up for a V-cut. Well, I set up to cut a V. Far from ideal. My Y travel on this little machine is very inadequate, so I've turned the vise round and trammed it in. This isn't super critical. I may have mentioned before, this is only for holding material for welding. So we're not super critical, and all I've got for a decent sized cutter is this roughing end mill. I'm so short of large cutters. In fact, something like 1.5 inch shell end mill would have done better, but I haven't got one. Maybe it's something I'll get sometime. Anyway, we're just starting off light cuts and see how we go. It's going to take quite a while. Well, as I say, I've got a long way to go. Whether I've got a decent smaller cutter for finishing, after I've got the bulk hogged out, maybe I'll get a better finish. Of course, you don't really get a very nice finish from a roughing, but it may well suffice for the purpose anyway. Now I'll start cleaning up what's left. I think it'll work out alright, we'll have to see. Right, a little bit more to go, and then we should be finished on this bit. This should be the last clean-up pass, I think. Alright, I think we're there. I may be very slightly off centre. As I said before, it's not super critical. I think this is slightly, I haven't measured it, this is slightly wider than that. Not enough to bother me. The thing now is to decide whether to flip it over and put a shallow V the other side. I'm not sure whether I got time to do that today or maybe soon. Well, while things are more or less set up, I just put a shallow V this side. Of course it's still roughing end mill rough on this side, but it's a V groove, might be useful instead of the big one the other side. So we'll get it deburred, and I think that's about it. Okay, I hope that was of some interest. Not really a very important project. It was something that I had in mind, and having started it I thought, well, I better finish it. And I've still got a list of stuff that I'd like to try and get through. The thing is, I really don't think I'm going to be able to make videos at the level I used to. There are a lot of factors. We had a pretty bad winter, like a lot of people, but I've got a lot of things to sort out, partly sort of winter damage, if you like, things that have to get attention. House, yard, and I hate talking about health issues, but my back gets worse. it's a bugger, it really is. And I take meds. I suppose most people my age do take some meds. Well, mine basically keep me alive, which makes it sound very dramatic. It's not quite as exciting as that, but if I stop taking them, I'll probably last about 2 or 3 weeks. So one of the factors that ties in with that is what I can only call chronic fatigue. Absolutely wicked tiredness. It doesn't matter how much rest I get. I mean, I can take a nap and sleep on the head of a pin. So it makes it very hard to motivate. That's the point. Very poor motivation. It's one thing wanting to get stuff done, it's another actually getting to it and having the energy, and, as I say, the old back. Even sitting is not good, and standing's diabolical. Cash-wise, I'm pretty strapped. I seem to be nothing but damn bills, and one or two things I wanted to get in terms of tools and such like are not possible. I think I mentioned when I was doing the aluminum block, my choice of large milling cutters is ridiculously small. I've never got enough cutting tools. It's alright on the lathe, they've got a good choice there, but milling never seem to have what I really want. So the blocks were done using a roughing, and that's it. I had to put up with it. So I don't think there's anything else. I haven't scripted this, I'm just trying to remember what I wanted to say. I shall still try and do odd videos, but I know almost for sure that they're not going to come out at the frequency I would like and what I used to do. I may throw in the odd review, I know, review, big groan from everybody, but I might do the odd review and maybe 1 or 2 projects, but I think they'll probably be spread out over time, so it'll be as and when. So if you're still with this old bugger, keep an eye out. I might appear now and again. Still enjoy watching a lot of you when I can make the time, and just hope to see you again before over long. Oh, the other factor, yet another factor, the shop is in a terrible state. I just haven't got space for everything, so I've got to try and reorganise a bit, well, a lot, and that means spending a lot of time, which will have to be done in small doses, and it's the sort of stuff that's not going to make an interesting video. It's just tedious. So the time I might spend on a project, I might spend 10 times as much when I can get to it to try and get organised in here. So yeah, just another factor. Anyway, sorry to waffle on. I say, if you stayed with it until this stage, it maybe help fill you in a bit. Some people say, oh, why don't you get surgery on your back? It's not practical. Couldn't afford it, and the type of problem probably wouldn't take very well to surgery, so I just have to try and work around it. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope to see you sometime in the future. At least temperatures are better. That was one thing kept me out of here a lot. Just couldn't really get it warmed up. It was like a fridge, and you know what, a huge mass of metal which holds the you know, that somebody mentioned the specific heat of metals. So the temperature can be slightly better from an air temperature point of view, and everything is just totally cold and depressing the temperature. Alright, I'll keep coming on to another aspect, don't I? Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you stayed with me till here, thanks very much. And look forward to seeing you sometime, whenever. Okay? So again, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye for now.